Okay. So what is remote viewing? Remote viewing's been, I guess, we've been remote viewing for ever since the species has been on the planet. We've had shaman that would do techniques that were basically the same as remote viewing. When does the history of remote viewing begin with you?
When the first man walked the planet.
Right.
And animals remote view, most animals anyway, remote view naturally anyway.
Right.
If you ever had a dog or a cat or work with them or see a natural disaster about to happen and see all the animals walking up the hill and stopping right at the place where they should stop and nothing happens to them, like in the tsunami in Phuket. It's a natural ability. It all has to do with the connection being open fully to your subconscious or being reduced so that you don't realize that you have a subconscious that operates.
Yeah, a lot of people would think that remote viewing didn't exist until we scientifically broke down the process you're describing and assigned protocols to it.
Correct.
And there are a number of different types of remote viewing as well.
Sure.
Can you describe the different types?
There is the one that I talked about, going within, they call this it's like free-flowing extended remote viewing, which is the one that's most used. It was originated mainly in Eastern Europe and Western Europe, and then it came to the US. And then in the US, they started doing protocols where they were more amenable to the military here because of their mentality, where they wanted fast results without altering consciousness. And it worked, but it's more of idiomotor responses where and it was based on certain techniques that were taught by a sect, a religion sect that was teaching something, the Titans. I know you know what I'm talking about.
Right, and it's no surprise that the military was going to try to weaponize a natural ability.
How could the military not want to weaponize something? That's not going to happen, at least not right now. Right. So of course they tried to weaponize it, to the point that they even tried to use it for influencing people's health and meditations and the ability to make decisions and try to implement thoughts in other people's. But it was used also for when signal intelligence wasn't as powerful as it is right now, and there were not drones on every corner, and you didn't carry your chip, which I call the iPhone or the Google. They're watching you all day long.
Listening.
Yeah, listening and watching. Before that, when they needed information, they would very often turn to remote viewers. It was not 100% effective, because nothing can be 100% effective when you're dealing with, and I can explain why when you get into those realms, because you can be touching some parallel timelines that are not necessarily exactly the same timelines as you have. But there are ways of being quite effective. I would say the effectiveness of remote viewing right now, at least in the teams that we still have now in my operation, is about 70 to 80%. That's pretty high.
Yeah. Is everyone hearing us okay?
Can you hear me? Okay, is that better now? Oh, I'm sorry. I really apologize. Will you forgive my accent too? Yeah. Can anybody remote view what accent that is? Okay. Now French is correct. You got it. All right.
Okay. So what is the difference between remote influencing and remote viewing?
Okay. I don't know who coined remote influencing. As far as I remember, when I wrote in 1996 and 1997, it became public. I revealed how to do remote viewing. I started talking about remote influencing. Surprisingly, a lot of the remote viewers who had just had been decommissioned by the CIA or the DIA said, we don't do these things, of course. There is no remote influencing. And then finally it became a very big if you could subject matter, and a lot of people started teaching what they in their schools also called remote influencing. So remote influencing is really the same thing, though. What we were teaching is bringing, your mind is at all times connected to the mind of the creator. The only thing that exists in creation is thought. That's it. The basis of creation is not light. It's not sound. It's thought. The creator is infinite intelligence and pure thought, meaning it's not restricted. So it doesn't have to restrict itself in a system or mechanical apparatus or a linear type of thinking. It can think sideways as far as it wants and discards. If it's a little bit like a billion times more powerful than our artificial intelligence machine would be. It's pure intelligence, unrestricted. So in order for the creator to experience itself in different manifestations, be they for ourselves in the 3D world as animals, humans, and everything else, he will create systems of thought that would then be translated into the ability for me and you to talk through to the sound of waves we think is air, and it will block the ability to communicate from me and you automatically to our subconscious, because our subconscious are really connected. What people call intuition is really a connection at the level of the subconscious, and the level of the subconscious is really the level of your soul. There is, so mind, soul, i.e. spirit, and the creator are not disconnected. We're just the parts of the creator that are here to experiment and interact in this multifaceted game or lattice, if you want, that we call creation. So the reason why we cannot be telepathic or know, so to speak, the future, it was done on purpose so that we walk blindly the earth, because originally man was able to do so, the so-called Garden of Eden. He was able to see the whole, the good path, the bad path, and then the creator realized that most probably this would be a lack of experience for the creator, because they would always choose the best path in advance, knowing what the path would be. So he restricted mankind. But nevertheless, he gave man the ability to regain this ability, this natural ability, by showing characteristics that will align itself with the creator. And if those characteristics will be shown, you will be welcome back to go back to its original state.
It's amazing how the scientific community would state that remote influencing doesn't exist, when the scientific community has documented the observer effect, and how observing an experiment, by observing it, you can affect the outcome of that experiment.
Not only that, the only way you're going to not only affect an experiment, the only way anything is going to happen in front of you is if you observe it.
Right.
I mean, quantum physics right now is getting to the point where they use electrons, they use, but not only photons, and they do all kind of experiments where they realize that there is no real future, there is no past, that there is retro causation, meaning that when you see something, it's your act of observation that creates the reality. And they used to only talk about probability functions that would collapse at that point, but they realized that the moment you see something, and I could go on for hours explaining quantum physics, but we don't have time for that. It's like in the movie Matrix, when they ask Neo, Neo is going to see the oracle, and then this kid is there watching a spoon, and the spoon is bending, and Neo goes, "Well, that's interesting." And he says, did you bend the spoon? He says, "If you think that the spoon is outside of you and I'm bending the spoon, that's impossible. If you think the spoon is inside of you," which it is, by the way, because there's nothing outside of you, "I'm just bending my mind. I'm bending that reality that I'm projecting out." And then the spoon bends. So you can bend spoon, but you can do much more than bending spoon. You can bend reality, you can bend people's desires, you can make the world a magnificent place. We are basically, we don't realize, but we are not just tiny parts of the creator. We are restricted for our learning purposes until we develop a conscience, not the consciousness, a conscience that's high enough to be brought back up towards and invited in the family of the Creator, and we remain alive with the Creator, because we are really then the many within the one. So when we're ready, we will be able to bend the spoon, bend reality, and create reality as the Creator does. And it's within us. We carry that mechanism within us, in our biology.
And just as
and mind especially.
Yeah. And just as remote viewing is a natural ability, so is remote influencing. We're doing it right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're affecting the co-creative consciousness. So, you know, all we need are a few protocols to learn how to become more effective. Now, you mentioned something that we could bend people's wills and that kind of a thing. You know, there is no spoon. Do we violate other people's free will when we remote influence?
That's an excellent question. Okay, I'll tell you, at the level of the co-creators, because there are higher levels than us, which are part of what we consider to be our soul. But our soul is a multi-dimensional level too. And it's not an entity, it's a superimposition of states
Rooted
that connects
in
to a higher set. Each soul, yeah. Because if we are disconnected from our soul, we wouldn't exist. We would just literally, you would evaporate in front of me, or I would evaporate, I wouldn't exist. So there has to be that connection to the source. So from the source, you go down lower and lower, and that accumulation, that circuitry that finalizes itself to the final product, which is I, you, and all these people here, which are magnificent when you think of it. It's an incredible thing to watch a human being, or to watch this creation. It's not something to discard and say, okay, next. Because this is the ultimate creation for the Creator, this ability to create separation to such an extent that we forget who we are. That's, at the level of the Creator, this is an extremely exciting thing, because he himself can lose himself in his own dream and start to worry about regaining control. You understand?
I do.
So, go ahead.
So, as we learn to have a greater effect on the co-creative consciousness, is there a responsibility that comes with that? A responsibility to your fellow man and
of course,
their free will?
We are constantly influencing each other whether we know it or not. When you go into a room and you're in a bad mood, for whatever the reasons are, and lately there are a lot of reasons that have nothing to do with you, because they are just energies infiltrating. There's a whole phenomenon now, because we are shifting.
Language itself is a manipulation. You're trying to convince someone else of your...
Exactly. Right. So we are here to influence each other. It's not illegal. It's necessary. We are not to be not influencing each other, but hopefully we will influence each other for the better, to help the other, to share with the other, to be loving towards the other. Because in that process, you're helping yourself. So this is the difference between, yes, you should influence. Now, if you want to impose, which is different, and that can be done, and I'm not going to say how it's been done, not at our level really, but on the higher levels, that game is played, where they try to impose. That is a no-no. But as anything you tell a child not to do, you know what he's going to do, most probably what he's not supposed to do. So this is it's become a serious problem at the level of what some people perceive higher creators or extraterrestrials and so forth. They come in and they start playing with our minds. I won't even talk about what's going on in the governmental levels, which is they literally almost fry your brain to try to put thoughts in it.
What is the difference between, some people spend a lot of time daydreaming, and is that a type of meditation? What is the difference between daydreaming, meditation, dreaming, and prayer?
Well, it depends how you pray. If you pray with full conviction because you believe in how you pray, or the name that you invoke, or whatever that is, or you've seen the power of prayer, and then there's a positive reinforcement that this will be achieved, you're really influencing reality. You're bringing that future that's not there yet in manifested format, but that's being created, and you're going to meet it. And the moment you meet it, you're going to have the present moment of living it. That future is being prepared to you because you're energizing that particular future. There are many futures that you could choose from, but by doing this, you're bringing this to you. It's like a placebo effect on steroids. If you really, so that's what prayer is. It's really influencing reality. The mechanism is always the same. And if you do it just because you don't pray to a deity, but you pray because you understand the process and you understand that you are part of the deity, which hopefully everybody will soon, then you will bring that future that's been created by your higher self to you, and then you two will marry together, and then this will manifest itself, concretizes itself in this perception of reality. We have what we call the dream of creation here.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, just on meditation, they put too much mystery into it. But as I've stated, when you've sat in a deep state of thought or daydreaming, that's no different than meditating.
No.
And learning to obtain those deeper states of consciousness help you to not only meditate on a deeper level, but you get closer and closer to being able to wield that remote influencing ability and the remote viewing ability as well.
Right. If you think in terms of having an ability, you have it already.
Right. Just has to be fine-tuned.
Yeah, just watch a little baby when he's born, he starts screaming and he wants food. He has the ability to influence reality from the moment he comes out. That's it. We all have this ability. Yeah. So we are meant to have this ability. The question is, what do we do with this ability? That's a question we can only answer. And as people become more powerful in the way by which they're going to influence reality, including using their so to speak, the car, the vehicle, their biological vehicle, and the activity that they can do during the day, it's the quality that's more important than the quantity. So the quality of your influence is really capital, but it's there. Now we teach techniques. Because you said that. It's funny when you said that. It's like when people ask me, what's the difference between meditation and this and that? And I said, they say, I cannot meditate, I cannot go into hypnosis. And I said, really? And I said, have you watched a movie? And they go, yeah. I said, well, if I put an EEG to your brain, you'd be probably into deep alpha. That within a couple of seconds.
And that's why they use that state in movies to plant seeds into our co-creative consciousness and use it against us. Because I'm curious, you've been doing this for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever had, because this is really dangerous information. They try to keep the observer effect secret. They don't want us to know the power of our co-creative consciousness because they want us to stay there in a state of being asleep so they can manipulate it. Yeah. Have you ever, from delivering this information, have you ever had opposition?
Whoa.
Stupid question?
No, because if I were to tell you what happened to me, and I have some people that have known me for a while out here, you would beat the best movie, science fiction movie, and in a sad way though. Yes, of course.
I can relate.
Yeah, from many levels, including some levels are not human, because they don't want that information out at all.
No, this is dangerous information.
Very dangerous.
If you're the control
much
system.
More sophisticated than our military, by far. Right. So I could write like books on that. But I always believe that if you stay aligned with the one, really aligned in your heart with the one, you're protected. And this has been proven to me many times, including recently when somebody really tried to get rid of me and put some drugs in a drink, and where when I opened my eyes, which I was not supposed to be a minute later, but like 10 minutes later, that person was strangling me, and I laughed, because it was not even me, it was my higher self laughing, going, you think it's going to work? And just kicked her out and left. But those things happen all the time. I heard that there was a problem with Wilcock, right? With an accident. yesterday.
An apparent attempt.
Yeah, I had that too many years. They teleported my car, literally. They moved it around like as a warning, and I went, I took my car, but I had a major problem because it was accelerated from 40 miles an hour to about 150 suddenly, jumped off in the middle lane. I find myself, I knew I was dying. I saw the cars coming, and then I lost consciousness, found myself in the ditch across. And then they had to send, at that point in Mitsubishi, it was 2001, before 9/11, like 3 months before. And they sent the head of security, a technical service of Mitsubishi from the southeast, from Georgia. I came down for 4 weeks trying to understand how come a new car had a flywheel that was broken in the middle, and which is really almost impossible. So, but I was there, and I'm still here.
Yeah,
not planning on leaving until I'm finished doing what I'm doing, and then we're going to go to a nice place together.
Yeah, yeah. People don't realize how dangerous an idea can be.
No. Yeah. The real war is a war of ideas. The world is a world of ideas. There's nothing else but thought, ideas. You change the world by changing the ideas that people believe in. That's it. As long as they keep repeating the same old ideas and stay in their old programming and stay there, they're going to repeat history. Why are they repeating history? Because they bring the same seed idea and then they create their reality around it. They don't realize they're creating this.
Right.
So the study of history should be a study where you learn from it, but not a study where you're fascinated by it, and then you make tons and tons of movies, showing battles and more battles and more glory, and then because we're never going to get out of this infernal cycle. So we have to stop. I don't know how you tell people stop. I don't care, like 1 day, 2 days, and just erase everything that you've been taught is true, and just connect inside, because the truth is inside of you. You carry it. You were born with it. Just take all the stuff out and then go to the basic truth, not of what you have become, because that's kind of obvious. We're all reflecting each other, and that's who we have become, but who you are. And who you are is you're really the creator. Having gotten a major case of blindness and schizophrenia at the end. Well, he's having schizophrenia because he thinks he's everybody,
Yeah. Now, remote viewing in general, these techniques are, all the different types of remote viewing, are they all based on military or intelligence programs?
The ones that call themselves remote viewers, most of them are, they've been birthed, but there's nothing incredible as far as the ability to do. Anybody can do it. It has nothing to do with IQ. It has nothing to do with the amount of money that you have. It's something you're born with. People that do a lot of nature tracking have this instinctive ability to perceive, the track in advance, who was there, and they can sense it. Animals have it, they don't lose it. So what we teach people is to go at the level, and you took our course, and you remember taking the course. We teach people to go for remote viewing at the border of sleep, which is called theta. That's the level you have at night just before going to sleep, when you have this hypnagogic imagery for a little while, and then you go into the level of sleep. The reason we do this is because we have good reasons to prove, we can prove that when you go to sleep in reality, you go to the level of your subconscious, unconscious, the universal conscious mind. We are all connected at that level. And your soul, you reconnect to your soul. And your soul, at the level of the soul, is connected to all the other souls it connects to, which goes very far and influences far more than we can even dream. Sorry? Sorry?
Oh,
okay. And so we will bring you to the level of theta, and we try to stabilize you. Theta in the Greek letter shows it's like an oval with a sign in the middle. It's like having 1 foot in the outer, so to speak, reality, and 1 foot in the inner reality. And you're supposed to operate with, hopefully you will constantly operate, not only when you meditate, because people say, oh, let's go meditate and let's do some remote viewing. That's not the way you should be. You should be constantly with 1 foot in the inner world which is infinite. The real infinity is inside. It's not outside. You know, we think of the universe outside as being infinite. You can see it and travel and never see the end of it, but that's going to be projected to you. The real infinity is inside of you. And so you have one foot within the inside that you monitor your thoughts, and then the other foot is on the outer, and then you finally get to a point where you constantly realize that your whole thoughts, everything you think about, and that you truly believe in, are being mirrored across in the reality that you then experience. And then you are not the one projecting that reality. It's projected for you through your senses. So what you perceive outside as being beautiful light is in reality happening through the brain inside.
Yeah,
and there is
like
no
an
light.
antenna.
There's no light in the
receiver.
brain.
Yeah.
Sorry?
You're like an antenna for
Yes.
consciousness.
Yeah, you're an antenna for consciousness, and you're a point of light for the Creator. You're an important point of perspective. He has all the perspective of himself through all the points of light that we all are. He can see himself in this way, in that way, and he's basically interacting with itself through us. Do you understand?
I do.
Right.
And I was just thinking that even though, remote viewing and remotely influencing the co-creative consciousness is a natural ability that we have, but we can develop those abilities by co-opting the weapons that are used against us. We can use remote viewing protocols that were developed for war, and we can, through our intent of being service to others, we can take those protocols, enhance our innate abilities to try to influence this co-creative consciousness for the betterment of the rest of humanity.
Not only we can, we should.
Yes.
I'm not going to say something because I'm trying to promote anything here. If man right now does not go within much more and lets go of all the programs that tell them how to do it and just reads about it or just watches things about it but doesn't do it, there is a very serious possibility that we're not going to be able to continue as a creation period. Not because the Creator is angry or judgmental, because that's not at all the case. It's impossible for it because we are His own children. It's just because of the amount of conflicts that are arising right now between humanity and the separation that we don't know how to handle it. If we don't turn within and realize and experience within strongly that we are all connected, and we stop the madness for a little while at least, we're going to have a major problem. And people don't realize that every single ailment that we have as humanity, whether it's a disease, whether it's major problems in relationships, whether it's the inability to be happy, the dysfunctional family, the dysfunctional society, the anger, the idea of judging everybody from the exterior instead of watching the interior because they're unable to feel the interior of that person. All the dysfunctionality can be easily healed the moment you shift. We have done incredible healings in our group. I mean, things that would in the old times would be considered to be totally miraculous. I mean, really totally miraculous. And this is constant. And the people that are doing it are not the holiest people on earth. They just understood and are living this principle right now. And through living it, being it, expressing it, they manipulate the reality in order to help their families, in order to help others, in order to do all this. And maybe doctors won't like it, but it's the way it is.
Are there, we've heard the stories about, the men staring at goats, trying to kill a goat with their thoughts, stopping a heart or causing an embolism or something like that. Are there other ways that remote viewing, remote influencing that you know of are used in these unacknowledged programs that we would be unaware of?
Okay. I am not aware of it personally. I know they were using it here, especially trying to mess with this. I don't know how efficient that would be, I can only say that, yes, you probably can do these things. You don't have to look at the remote viewers. You look at the black magicians, they do this all the time. Mm-hmm. But it takes also two to tango. The person that is being applied a certain negative energy, if you want a bad spell, and then you're trying to do something to it, usually you realize that if they have the fear, if they just catch that element of fear, they are seriously at risk. But if they are able to stay in a state where they do not espouse fear, because fear is not natural, it's not godly. It's a reaction in front of the unknown and not knowing how to react, and then you seem to either react aggressively or you lock into a shell. If you don't have this fear, you're fine. So my answer is yes. If you're asking me on higher levels that you've experienced, if they can do certain things, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. I had a question here, but I just lost it. But I guess we'll move on. What is a collective consciousness? Is it the same as source? Is it something a little different?
It has many levels. You could imagine it's a node of consciousness. If you have 5 people connected to a same node of consciousness, let's say, okay? And then there are branches, and then there's you, and then there's your son, and then the daughter, and then they're all connected. It forms one node of collective consciousness. If you talk about the global consciousness of mankind, that's another node. And that's already a very highly creative node that connects every single human being on this planet. If you talk about a universal consciousness, then you're talking about a whole universe. And that continues to multiply, because there are many, many universes operating parallelly in different realities to ours. So they all gigantic nodes of operations, of creators. These are real creators are operating, handling, controlling their creations, and hoping for a better outcome. There's not a creator in the world that wants a bad outcome. There's a problem is certain creators, certain energies, if you want, are afraid of losing us as humans because they basically have gotten used to use us as batteries, as energy, because we have divine energy, yeah, and they don't.
Right.
In fact, they are really artificial. It's like we are playing with computers. There are some creators that have played with artificial types of creators, and they've lost their ability to create their own energy, so they just suck it out from us. So they try to divert us and confuse us all day long with stories, especially scary stories and stories that put us in a state of incredible stress, so that we barely have time, because even though time is relative, or you can even say it doesn't exist, we only live the present. We don't have time to go within and do this. So that's why we have so many people right now. I would advise them, instead of watching their iPhone and eating from the apple of the tree of good and evil, at night to relax, I would watch a movie that shows battlefields, and so, because it stays in the mind. Every time you watch a battlefield movie, the mind has no knowledge of future, past, whether it's real or not. It takes it in as if you went through this. And it changes you, and it changes the field around you. First your family, and then your city, and then your country, and then the whole planet. So we're not doing ourselves a favor doing this.
It also kind of reminds me of what I was told, that all of us want to change the world, but if we start practicing these types of methods, then we are changing the world, one person at a time.
Yes.
And through our example.
And there's not going to be a savior coming from anywhere else saving us. We have to be the saviors, each and every one of us. We have to do it. And we can. It's so easy.
Yeah. First, we have to overcome our programming. And the programming is on many different levels. We socially program each other every day. That is not a social norm. That is not right. You're going against that. We've been programmed to shepherd ourselves. Once we get past that programming to realize that, yes, we can get off our knees, then we'll realize that inwardly, all the answers are inwardly. And once we do that, then we're no longer slaves.
Yeah. It was, thank you, yeah.
How do our daily thoughts, concerns, fears contribute to this co-creative consciousness? How does it affect the co-creative consciousness?
The co-creative consciousness is, I give you an example. When we do remote influencing, when we teach you remote influencing, we teach you how to go into the sleep state, which is in Greek is the letter delta. It's called the delta state. It's from 1 CPS to 4. Your brain is vibrating between 1 times per second to 4. If you're at 0, you're not here anymore. So at 1 to 4, you're in delta. At that level, there is no dreaming possible. And people thought, well, even though we spend at least a third to a half of our day, depending if people like to sleep or not, being asleep, why would the creator create that state and have us stay there doing basically nothing? Well, we're not really doing nothing. We are in touch with a creative state and the creator at that point. So we can teach you how to remain totally lucid while you're sleeping. You may hear yourself snoring. You may decide to leave your body and do some high work. So it's very advanced lucid dreaming. Because in reality, we're all dreaming. As I'm talking to you, we're in the middle of a joint dream. This is a dream that we're having together. But lucid dreaming is when you take back control over your reality. And at that point, you can inject thoughts at the level of the creator, who is totally neutral. And you take back your control over your creation. You can protect yourself. You can protect your family. This is remote influencing on a very, very high level.
Now,
to go back to this, good.
Yeah, we know that thought can have an effect on matter, but where does emotion comes into play? I've always been told that emotion was sort of a catalyst, an energetic catalyst to thought.
Okay. Not only does thought has an effect in matter, thought creates matter. There is no matter.
Right.
The illusion of matter is created to the activity of thought. Now, it's not created by you saying, let it be a mountain here, or I want a tower, and it should be immediately. This happens on different levels.
It's created by consensus, by a large group.
By consensus, and there is literally something you call the matrix or whatever. It's a lattice of operation that the creator made available so that when you input into this lattice, I want this to be manifested, it will manifest. It's like if you're dreaming at night, and then suddenly you find yourself riding a horse somewhere and then having a whole story unfolding. Did you create the horse? How did you go about creating the horse? Who are the other characters living, dreaming with you? Is it you? Well, they are you, yeah, but they're coming from higher levels of you that are playing against you, so that you have this impression of a story being played out. So if you're asking me if matter really exists, it matters a lot, because otherwise there will be no reality that we would perceive it as such, we wouldn't take it seriously. So it's nevertheless, it's still thought. That's why when you said bend your mind, you'll bend the spoon, because the spoon is not made out of matter. It's literally a projection out. We all have a bubble reality that we move around in.
If the negative side uses fear as a catalyst to cause their plans to come into be through the use of our co-creative consciousness, then I guess love is the opposite of fear. So that is our tool, that is our battery to pull from. The energy that we have to feed into these.
The two poles in creation as forces. That's the most important thing to understand. There's a force of the nature of the creator, which is pure love. It gives life, love, and light starts with it's basically the same thing. It's gifting, not asking anything in return. So that's true love, unconditional love. When you feel that love, which I've felt a couple of times, you'll never forget it, because you're bathing in this field of, you don't want to leave it, because you don't even get, even in your mother's womb you couldn't get it. For the people I can remember it, it's unbelievable. So that love comes down into creation, and because of the explosion into perceptions of separation, fear which is an illusion, because how can you be afraid of who yourself? You're part of me, I'm part of you. Everybody is part of each other.
Ignorance causes fear.
Huh?
Ignorance of that causes fear.
Exactly. And then hatred starts coming in. And from hatred, we go into violence. And then we have principles. And then we have books. And then we have systems. And then before you knew it, there is it's a spiral, downward spiral that comes down really fast. And we have to stop that. We can only stop it, each man and woman, one at a time, especially the children, because they still have the most powerful creator in this world are the children. Because their state of belief is immense. So when a child is watching a violent movie, as opposed to an adult, and you're saying, well, he's only a child, or he's playing a video game that's violent, you don't realize that kid has 100 times more power in creating violence around the world than you have, because for him, he's so engrossed in this reality that he's emotionally attached. His emotion is what gives life to thought. When you marry emotions and thought, you create.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Completely. Thank you. That's good. I think we've discussed it a little bit, but how is our co-creative consciousness used against us by those who want to control us?
Because they know our weak points. They know that we're not evil. We lack the warmth of the group.
Apathy.
We have apathy up to a certain extent, but what humanity is really dying of, and I'm serious now. I mean, you take all the diseases you want in this allopathic, broken system that takes a whole and then looks at all the little parts and then thinks that they operate independently, almost independently of each other. But when you look at humanity and all the diseases we suffer now, the only reason we suffer of diseases, the only reasons where we suffer of lack, we have problems, is because we lack one thing. It's not money. It's not necessarily a healthy environment. We lack love. And even the most evil person on the planet will be evil because it lacks love, and he would look to form a group that will give him a minimum amount of love because it didn't receive it. If you look at all the worst dictators and the brutes of all brutes in our history, they were still. You could always find that as children they lacked love and they didn't get love. They didn't get what they needed. It's the real currency of the universe is love.
And there's a major fear of not having love.
Right. Yes.
And if we don't learn to love and forgive ourselves, then we're not ever going to be fully empowered to use these tools that, a lot of us have been spending many years learning to hone certain skills, building up their tool chest, but we're not going all the way.
No.
Yeah, and it has to go with self, love of self.
Yeah, in our course, we almost program you to say that if you're not going to use this for loving purposes, it just won't work. And at that point, you are in a very altered state, so your mind is accepting it and it's programmed. So you can't use this for undesirable purposes. We built this in on purpose.
Now, I think I've talked a little bit about how I had in the programs seen them discuss how they use our co-creative consciousness against us, but use propaganda to do it. Movies, the news. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the times they will plant a seed, the idea of what they want to occur in your mind. And either at the same time or at a later date, they will do a false flag or something that will cause you to make that come into reality with our emotions. Are there other ways that they use the media and other tools against us in our co-creative consciousness?
Okay. It's going to be hard for you to, not you, because I know you will understand, for a lot of people to accept the fact that we not only are being abused and used and played with, and we're the most important players in the universe because we have a straight connection to the creators. Well, all these, so to speak, archons, titans, call them whatever you want, those mega forces don't. What's happening is that they play the chess game. What's important for them is the result of the chess game, and they want in that conflict that's going to be between, because it's a multidimensional chess game, that there should be a lot of conflict because they suck that energy. It's much easier for humans to produce emotional energy when they are in despair and in anger than to produce emotional energy when they're in love. It's the wrong type of energy, but they can take that energy and feed upon it and use it. So they create situations where everybody starts hating everybody, and they give reasons for everybody to hate everybody. So it's not that one side is right or the other side is left. We have to transcend this and start thinking, why is this even happening?
Well, they as long as we're hating each other and fighting each other,
right,
we won't have the time to realize we are one.
Right. We understand that the reason we are fighting each other and going into all those stories and fighting each other is because they used that energy in that situation in order to solve their problems and keeping us enslaved at this level. So we never have a chance to come back from where we originally came from. They even say in old mystical things that even the angels are jealous of humanity because we came straight from the Creator. Well, we endowed with the same quality as the Creator has, which means that basically we could have all the powers that the Creator has are in our hands.
I think this group's ready to take that power back.
It's right. Yeah, it's due time, I think so. Yeah. And it's free, you know. Yeah. Basically, almost free. You just need to dedicate yourself in doing it, and then take it back. And always question when you see something coming at you.
What is the best way to defend ourselves against these tools that are used against us, media and other tools that they use to guide our co-creative consciousness in the wrong way? How do we defend ourselves against that? I would imagine just being aware is a major part of it.
They want you to get upset and fight them. You know, they're like the bully that comes in the road and say, "Hey, how about a fight?" You know,
instead of being like water.
Right, and then you should do it. And I'm not saying because of Christianity, it's that give them the other cheek, which doesn't mean that, hey, hit me on the other cheek. It means I'm not interested. Goodbye. Yeah. So turn away.
Show them your other cheeks.
It doesn't mean that if you right, turn on your rear.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that takes courage. It takes a lot of courage to do that. Most people say it takes more courage to oppose and fight. No, it takes a lot of courage to be totally calm, smiling, remaining loving, understanding that that poor entity is lost, and saying, "I love you anyway. We'll find you when you get back to your senses. We'll talk, but not right now."
It's hard to remain that zen all the time. I can tell you. Recently, it's been very hard for me.
Very hard. Yeah, for me too. Yeah, I know.
Okay. So, what can we do to grab a hold of the rudder and begin to change what do we do as 1, 2, 5 people in a group? How do we start to navigate to the most optimal temporal reality using the co-creative consciousness? How do we do this?
First, we make a decision that we're going to co-create. That's the first thing. It's almost a decision we have to decide. We're going to co-create
and agree consensus-wise on what.
Right, on what exactly, and then decide on what. And this is a dynamic process, not a static process. It changes as it goes. It keeps on expanding to areas that we probably don't even dream of right now, as we realize the impact that we can have. So we start co-creating, and we're co-creating in a harmonious way. We create, everything in the universe is harmony and sounds. Sounds create light. It's the first thing that existed in the universe when consciousness, as pure thought, started vibrating itself and said Om. But it was a vibration of consciousness, not a vibration of air. And that created the first light that started coming in, and then all the structures that we could think are coming from that matter, creators, entities are coming from that. So we have to do the same thing. We have to go back to our core, very core, and get that connection back. We all have it. It's not difficult. People think, oh, do I dare? I mean, I'm just a little nobody, and I haven't been anointed yet, and I'm waiting for a certificate from the university to tell me that I'm a super PhD, and what would my mother going to think of my daughter or my husband? And they're going to think I'm crazy totally on being knocked out. So, this isn't the way you should think. Just have at least the courage to realize who you are and express it. It doesn't mean that you have to shout it every day. You said, hey, don't talk to me, I'm God. You know, that's not going to work.
Yeah, I think another good point is that we can develop these skills and all of these tools, but if we don't also know thyself, deal with our own karma, then we're not going to be as effective, or what we think is being service to others may just be service to self.
Yes, because when you're in service to self and you realize the real self is the creator, you're in service to everybody. You cannot be in service, I'm just in service for a third of myself, and the rest I don't really care, or less.
or every other day.
Right.
Why is this inner work so important right now? Dealing with the karma, if we develop all of these tools, that's great. Remote influencing, learning how to meditate on a deeper level to affect a co-creative consciousness. But the inner work, why is that so important to the process?
Because the inner work is how you affect the outer world anyway. You can't affect the outer world by deciding, I want more money, I want more this. It's not going to happen. When your inner world changes to when you feel you are this and you are that and you're convinced of that, then the reflection across the mirror, which is the outer world, is going to be projected to you. So when you stop, we have given up our ability, which was given to us from the first man, to work on our inner world, to understand the kingdom is within. And before you knew it, we start thinking that the kingdom was maybe within and then without, and then we still believed in it, and then we lost it totally. Now it's totally without.
That's how we were programmed to give away our sovereignty.
Right. We gave up the sovereignty because who is the king? We are you. Everybody here is the king. We all are the king. At one point we are the one who is the many. We are all of it. And by denying it, or thinking that it's like a mental state to think so, or we're aggressing a religious state, we are in reality aggressing the reality of the one as being one. If you think that God is one, then what's wrong in thinking that the many are part of the one? Why would they be outside of the one? Of course they're part of the one.
Right. We're either all one or we're not all one.
Exactly. Then God is not one. Then yeah, exactly. Right.
Why we've heard earlier today people asking this question. Right now, it seems like everyone is being forced to deal with all of the karma, all of the trauma that we've buried deep and swore we would never visit again. Now it's being thrown in our faces. And we see people behaving very strangely in the world. To put it mildly right now. What do you think is the cause of that?
There is, this type of world starts in chaos and then goes into order and then goes back into chaos and then goes back into order. This is a type, if I were to speak on a higher level, the old Bible calls this the deluge. We're in the middle of the deluge right now. Not a deluge of water, a deluge of consciousness, where all the upper levels are coming down, the higher levels, and they're mixing with the lower underworld levels. And this is covering all the consciousness. So we're getting a lot of energies going through us. And then we have to understand, when you wake up in the morning tired or in the middle of the night having this crisis of anxiety where you don't understand why, or you feel suddenly that somebody is dying or something serious is about to happen, and then you don't run to your psychologist because next day you may wake up and feeling great, and then you go, oh, this is a beautiful day today, so I must have done something good. It's a very difficult process, because what is in reality happening right now, this whole creation has not been truly born yet. I know it sounds like I'm totally losing it, right? But I'm not, That's the only thing I know. Not yet, anyway. Give me a couple more years, we'll see.
Right.
So, the famous master Jesus asked him, they went to him and they asked him, tell us, Master, when is the end of the world going to come? And he said, have you even gotten to the beginning that you should ask me about the end of the world? And of course, I didn't understand it. A creation goes through a phase. The first stage is called the phase of the evening. When the moon shines, the silver sunlight, that's when the baby is inside the womb of the mother and breathing the placenta, and then happy and bathing and taken care of, and everything is fine. And then there is this birth process through the canal, and that's the night, and that's really difficult and very, as a matter of fact, if you do some hypnotic regression on any one of us, and then you bring them to that state, it's the most traumatizing state you can think of.
It's like your original trauma.
The original trauma is incredible, because you're being pushed around, you don't know where you're going, you didn't see the light yet, because you're used to being in darkness and everything is fine and you're taken care of. And you suddenly realize you have to take responsibilities. You're going to be disconnected from your mother, and you're going to be an individual being alone. You think alone. In reality, you're not, because your father is waiting for you and your mother is still there, but you don't know. So this whole creation is about now, after having been prepared for so long by the Creator, is coming out. The problem is that there are a lot of entities here who don't get that, of course not, but there are also entities who have an interest in us fighting this whole process. So the baby is breaching. Is coming out in a breech position, and is almost not accepting the light that's waiting, this glorious light, which is the real creation, the beginning of the true creation, where then you have no idea what can be achieved there, because I've been there. I mean, this is like, you're not going to ask about remote viewing or remote influencing, because it's like beyond this at that point. But we have to cooperate right now, and we have to understand and experience the oneness between us, so that we bring everyone into this aura, this atmosphere of harmony, and then we turn back, and we're not afraid of. How should we be afraid of the light? We come from the light. We are birthed by it. We're going to go back to the light. We don't die. We live for eternity. So we have to turn around. It's like the story of Plato. The cave of Plato, the Greek philosopher. He's talking about this cave, and people are watching a wall, and there are shadows that they're watching on the wall. They're fascinated by the shadows on the wall. And behind them is an opening. They're free to get out, and there's this beautiful, magnificent light and scenery. And they're all sitting there watching. They're giving their back to the light, and they're watching the shadows. I think it's time for us to let go of the shadows. We had enough. We paid our price. We're all worn out to the bones, really. And we fought, a great fight. I think we should just all unify, turn around, and let the light, the process itself, be in the flow, and then we're going to get out of it as a creation. This creation will be born, and it will be a beginning to it.
Yeah, I'm definitely done with this density. Yeah, this is an easy one for you. How can we better handle painful situations with family, jobs, partners? That's more of a, I guess, it's going back to dealing with yourself, because usually you're projecting onto others. What do you think is the best way to begin to process a lot of this trauma and pain? I know that through your course, a lot of people have reported that they've been able to process traumas. What is it about the process that allows them to do that?
It's multiple. First of all, they started experiencing this sense of unity and they sense others. It's not like necessarily that they're constantly reading their thoughts, but they sense them, and they can put themselves in the shoes of the others naturally without asking for it. So it makes a relationship to be much easier because you don't have to try intellectually to put yourself in the shoe of somebody else to see why he would say what he said or do what he did. And then at the same time, when you rise up in vibration closer to the light, to the highlight, you affect your whole field. And the ones around you are automatically affected. You wake them up. You make them more alive than they were before. And then the harmony comes in, because at the level of the highlight, there is only harmony. There cannot be disharmony. It doesn't even exist. So, okay, we're not there yet, but at least you're bringing all your environment into a moment of harmony, and you expand their mind. Because this whole idea of IQ or intelligence is ridiculous. Because if we are part of the Creator, we have access to infinite intelligence. And the way to open up our IQ, what we think is IQ, is not by doing some brain game on the computer, is by rising up closer to the Creator, at which point you start thinking in total different ways. You change your construct, your mental construct.
Yeah, you have to have the intention to change.
You have to have the intention, yes. Yeah.
Is Mother Nature, what we see occurring on the planet, is that a part of the collective consciousness?
Mother Nature takes care not only of this planet, not only of this universe, but all the universes. It is the one manifested in creation and with all the mechanisms of creation. We are children of Mother Nature, meaning we're the children of the one. The feminine aspect, the first vibration is Om, which means mother. It means Ah is a sound that's the most normal, easiest sound that will come out of your mouth is Ah. E is already a contraction. And is when you take the two parts together, you start vibrating them together. It's a sign of pleasure, but it's also a sign of the mother and the multiplicity, the multiplications, the M sound, the mother sound. So she's the one holding us in her bosom. She's feeding us freely. She represents infinite love and unconditional love. We have hurt her tremendously. It was to be expected that we would have some kind of reaction in not understanding who Mother Nature is. But I always say to people, if you want to see God, don't look for God in a book. Go look for God in the living God. The living God is Mother Nature. It's right in front of you. You're here.
Excellent. Why does Mother Nature express anger, or is it anger?
You don't want to know. Mama can get really angry.
Yeah.
When does Mother Nature? I would rather answer that one. She doesn't express anger.
Yeah, I agree.
She really does not.
Yeah,
it's
that's
not
just
anger.
our
What we
perception.
think is anger is not anger.
Right.
It's just a reaction to rebalance situations. But the pain she feels when she does that is beyond anything we can even imagine. Because she is a being that's fully alive and godly and has emotions. Because any being, anyone, whether it's a cat, whether it's Mother Nature, has emotions and thought. That's how you define a being, the emotions and the thought. And there's a tremendous amount of emotions in Mother Nature. As a matter of fact, if you want to connect to Mother Nature, show love to a Mother Nature. Connect to her, not by watching the Discovery Channel, but just by going, by going outside and hug a tree. It's okay to hug a tree. They might arrest you lately and all, but yeah.
Yeah, I hugged a big sequoia recently.
Right.
Yeah. Didn't change the world, but changed me a little bit.
Yeah, she reacts to love. It's like a flower. When you eat a plant and you don't give it love, you give it all the nutrients, it will grow, but it won't have this energy of life and love very strongly
Failure
in it.
to thrive. Kind of.
And you won't thrive. And you're going to feel very tired. And you're going to say, oh, GMO doesn't matter. Yes, it does matter, because you didn't take a plant even in your home and give it love. You're going to see it flourishing and thriving, and then there's an interchange. That's what Mother Nature needs. So if you want to grow fruits and vegetables and you want to heal yourself, It's not so much what pesticide or not pesticide, even though I'm totally against any pesticide or GMO especially. It's give it love. Literally, you will walk outside, go to your garden, and then you will recreate yourself.
I mean, we've
On
seen
the
how
biological level.
emotion, love, and hate, how those emotions can affect things like water crystals as they're being
Yes.
formed. And
They proved it, yes.
Yeah.
Everything, especially living things. And water is a living thing too, by the way.
it is.
We are mainly water, you know.
How are we doing on time? What time are we pushed to? Till 10:15? Okay. I definitely, I want to get through this, but I want to give people an opportunity to ask questions on this topic, because I'm sure there are a lot of questions, are there not? Do you have questions? Okay. All right, so are we becoming more and more disconnected from the co-creative consciousness by iPhones, all these devices that people seem to be buried in all the time?
Yeah. Are you kidding?
It's more than a distraction?
Do you think it was a coincidence that the first smartphone was called the Apple? It shows an apple beating.
Yeah,
It's
interesting.
the fall of man, you know, Adam, like,
Right.
boom.
Yeah.
It's not even 2 generations later, and I know.
All right, well, when television came out, that was the biggest boom to the intelligence community that they'd ever had.
Oh, I was laughing all the time because they were talking about, people were afraid they're going to chip us, and I said, why would you want to chip somebody from the inside when you can be watching him? You want to see him. You want to hear
Right.
what he's saying. This is the chip you're carrying, and they're all proudly carrying their chip all day long and then being monitored. But beyond that, it's disconnecting people from people. You see couples eating in restaurants that they don't even talk to each other. There's no communication. And if you want to talk to someone, I said, no, text me. I said, no, I'm not going to tell you I want to talk to you. You have to text.
All right. Is this shared reality, is it truly an illusion?
Which reality? You mean our reality here?
The reality that we're sharing here right now, is what we're experiencing here right now an illusion?
What is an illusion? It's real. Reality is R-E-E-L-L-E-T. You know, it's a real. It's like watching a movie. It is real. It's a manifested movie where we are active. That's all God can do. Is He can dream within His own enormous mind and keep everything in order, so that we as Him are active in this reality.
Yeah. I guess if we're
But this can be a
co-creating
paradise.
it, it's real. If we're co-creating it, we're making it
We're
real.
co-creating, yeah, we're supposed to. He wants, and it's like you want your kids to work with you, you know, you don't want to work against you and rebel against you. We're all children of God, all of us. I don't care where you come from, what city, what dimension, they're all children of God.
I think I know the answer to this one. If God is pure, why did He create hate? I guess you have to have a contrast between knowing what good and evil is. What is your, why do you think fear is such a part of this reality?
Well, that would be a multi-dimensional answer. Why did He create? He didn't create evil. He created a system that allowed for us to feel separated from each other and not being totally telepathic, which I'm sure you have experienced. I've experienced being telepathic. It's a totally different ballgame at that point.
Right.
So when you're working through the voice, through the senses, through to what we consider to be the 5 senses or 6 senses, you're operating with the risk of forgetting that the person you're hurting or the animal you're hurting is you. It's still you. And then you don't want to share. You don't want to cooperate. You're asking, what am I going to get if I share it? Are you going to scratch my back first, or am I going to scratch your back? And how much is it going to cost? And then you go into accounting and balancing. That's not God. That's us. He knew this. Of course, He knew this.
Yes. And He also knew. I don't know why I'm saying He, but
Well,
the Creator also knew
his
that
active mode. Yeah.
Yeah, that all evolution occurs through stress.
Yes.
So if we did not have these negative things occurring, we didn't have the traumas, we're not going to evolve. We're just going to be at a status quo. So I guess we need to learn how to appreciate the traumas once we've learned from them, and then and move on.
That's very profound, yeah. Because what you're saying, which is true, is that there is this creation, which is magnificent, but on the level of training is considered to be a very low and difficult training. It's almost the last training before you graduate here. From kindergarten, okay, from the higher school.
Right.
But it's still the last training. It's extremely difficult. The Creator knows it. And this is a distillation process of consciousness. You don't get to go to a higher level creation, or even to eventually get your own creation, because we don't realize that all the children of the One are supposed eventually, after one point or another, to become real true co-creators, cosmic creators, and get a co-creation. The One can co-create as many creations as it wants. It's not a problem. But we are being tested as far as quality of consciousness, not quantity. And everything here is quantity. You know, bring masses to people together, or add more money, or a million plus a million is 2 million, and that's not how he is. He's not judging ourselves because of we did good or bad. He's judging us to see if we are of the quality that's enough to go to a higher level. And that's why when you said we are getting those traumas, yes, you should say thank you sometimes for the traumas, because when you get a lot of traumas, it means you're almost out. You're almost going up. It's a sign that you're about to graduate.
Right. Yeah.
If you don't get anything, you don't tell that to people, but yes.
Yeah, that's recently I was told I was going through a karmic quick burn. Yeah, definitely felt
I feel
felt
for you.
like it.
I'm still in it. Right.
I'm sorry, how much time do we have left? How much time do we have left? About 20 minutes? Okay, we'll do a couple more questions and then, okay, next one. How does remote viewing, deep meditation, how does that help with memory retrieval? I know a lot of people have been trying to figure out if they have suppressed memories. What are the best ways to retrieve those memories? I know some people are going to a regression therapist can be good, but you've got to find one that's really reputable. They can front load you with information by accident.
Easily. Yeah.
Easily, yeah. I mean, what is your answer to that?
It's funny that you said it. I used to do a lot of past life regressions just as a game years ago, and I finally I managed to get most of the ladies that I was doing past life regression to become Cleopatra, because she was very popular in those times. And I would front load them, but I would do it I didn't do this as a joke. I did this to see if I could, and they would give me all the details of the life of Cleopatra, and it would more or less fit one with the other. So then I was asking myself, well, is reincarnation real, or where am I getting this information from? I mean, they were describing things that the average person had no idea about Cleopatra. So there is an area in the mind, call it the God mind, where it's like a library. Some people call it the Akasha library. You call it anything you want, but it's where the memory is kept vibrated there. It's like a memory bank in a computer. If you take off the electricity totally, it's going to go. So you keep a little electricity so it's vibrated. It stays there. They can access that information. Were they really Cleopatra? I don't know. But is it important for them to think they were Cleopatra? I don't. Sometimes they do.
Well,
it's good for your ego.
If we're all one,
right.
They were Cleopatra.
Exactly. They were
right.
Cleopatra. You're right. So they were Cleopatra. But to go back more importantly to what do you do when some people have had really traumatic, extremely traumatic memories? I think there are many ways of addressing it. You can bring back the memory to the forefront, but that's extremely dangerous, because when you bring a memory to the forefront, all the associated emotions that they felt, the mind does not know future, past, or future, or there's no time for the mind. There's only the now. So when you bring it back and they're reliving it, it's as if they're reliving it again. The fact that the mind will hide this in the background of the subconscious is a natural way of hiding the pain away.
Right.
Do you understand? So you have to decide whether you want to do this. I would rather go and change the past. Believe it or not, the same way you can affect the future, you can affect the past. You can go in a very deep state, like let's say, especially theta, and then you relive. We have a whole part of the course where we introduce people to something called the diamond body. They're basically recreating themselves. Physically, they can change the way they look, and trust me, it works. Mentally, and also spiritually, but also as far as the memory banks. They can recreate and decide that I don't accept this as my background or my past, and they make up a past, like people that believe in having multiple personalities and then they believe that they've had different pasts.
Yeah, I know that works.
It can be a very powerful tool.
Yeah, I have done exercises to where I send messages to myself in the past. Mm-hmm. Like if I forgot to bring something on a trip, I will sit there and consciously try to send a message to myself in the past. And I train myself to always be listening for that little nudge for myself in the future. And there have been several times that it's worked out very beneficial for me.
Right. And you know, right now with the quantum computers in quantum physics, it's been proven, the delayed choice experiment has been proven, so that a reality that's concretized now in the material world by our observation is sending waves in the past, changing the past, sending waves in the future, changing the future at the same time, and then presenting us with a present. That's physics. You know, they can blind themselves, all the people that will not accept it, but this has been proven in laboratory experiments since 2010, 12, but very strongly so now.
Yeah. Well, I think, I think pretty much we're gonna go to questions from the audience. I definitely want to thank you, Gerald, for being here.
Right.
Yeah. A lot of people. Many people may not realize this, but it was about 1996, about 3 years after Stacey and I got married. I was looking for a good remote viewing course, and I was looking at all of them. And when your remote influencing information came out, I bought it. And it was, when we first got married, we were so broke. And I can't remember how much the course was back then, but she remembers. Because, I mean, we were like destitute, and I'm ordering a course on remote viewing.
Yeah.
And for her at the time, before her download and her awakening, it was not an easy thing for me to get approved. But the interesting thing is that after the course, I was so impressed, I sent you an email.
Yeah.
And I told you about how when I was a kid, I would project myself outside of the car above the freeway, as a way to pass the time. And I thought everyone else could do it. And you actually called me. I was working at Stream International. It was my first IT job.
Uh-huh.
You called me and we spoke. I was real busy. I didn't have time to really talk, but you were asking me a lot of questions.
Uh-huh.
And it's really interesting that, fast forward over 20 years, here we are on the stage together.
Right.
So I appreciate it.
Things happen for a reason. Thank you. I appreciate it too.
Thank you. Thanks.